at the forefront of this changing conversation?
I think that is a very, very important conversation we've got to have around the world, especially when you're. One of the things I noticed at COP26 also when we were there is apart from the national governments interacting with each other, you also had a lot of regional cooperation, you had a lot of regional bilaterals going on, regional governments meeting each other at forums, at general assemblies. I think that is very important today. Because when most national governments have a conversation or when they go to forums and meetings or in bilaterals, it's the most current topics that are being discussed, especially currently with Ukraine or with other blips in or rather events in our current times. But what we've got to realize is the Indo-Pacific also is about the future. It's got a shared past, we've got a current tense that is really tense, and we've got a shared future. But when we speak about the shared future, you've got to look at healthcare and how are we looking at healthcare, because COVID has taught us a lot. So how do we come out of it collectively? How do we avoid future pandemics like this? What is our response going to be there to that, as a shared response? So that is one, because more or less economically we're moving ahead and at a speed that cannot be controlled by anyone or restricted by anyone. So that is one. But when we speak about development again, for us as Maharashtra or for us as different regions around India and probably also, the crescent right from India to East African nations, we're looking at cities growing rapidly. We're looking at populations growing rapidly. We're looking at the need and urge for development on the high. And when we look at this, how short-term is a development or how long-term is a development? I think that is something we've got to really think about. When we have reports like, and congratulations to the AFD for this report, but when we have reports about, partnering for finances with private banks or with banks that are national, with agencies, with think tanks, we've also got to think about what are we looking at in terms of the next 50 years, the next 100 years. Is our development in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social development, in terms of socio-economic, political development, in terms of societal development, how sustainable is it? Is it going to last us for the next century? Because most of the thought process today is a very urgent thought process. It's about today, it's not about the tomorrow. And if we have forums, if we have think tanks that are thinking about tomorrow, we've got to look at our growing populations. We've got to look at the changing requirements of the population, the strata, the socio-economic strata that the population comes from and where it is heading towards, the requirements of energy security, the requirements of food security, healthcare. So all of these, I think it's very, very crucial for us to also have inter-regional dialogues for us where we're looking at, especially when we as India also having different regions and states having huge populations. So we've got to have an inward and outward outlook. We've got to have more connectivity with the world, a thought process that is more global, as the popular term, because finally it's going to be the regional governments that are going to be implementing it. Is it practical enough to be implementing it in terms of the practicality of, is it possible today? Is it economically possible today? Is it socially acceptable for us? These are some of the conversations if we can have with our own national governments and with governments around the world, it's surely going to help the Indo-Pacific to move ahead.